Hello and welcome to Pursuit 365 Spirituality Show. I'm your host, Rani Sanghera, holistic healer, registered yoga teacher, psychedelic guide, and coach. Today I'm very excited for our next guest. Her name is Carol Lampman. She is the creator of the integral breath therapy and a modern day shaman, I would say, after all the experiences that I witnessed and had with her. Carol, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Why don't we begin by you just sharing a little bit about yourself?
So, I've been doing work with the breath for the last 30 plus years. Before that, I had a background in the medical profession, which brought me to the whole mind body connection, which is part of the story of how IBT came into being. So I'm a grandmother, married with children, and spiritual pursuits have always been important to me. And I looked here and there and everywhere for the key. And what happened to me is that was the process of doing my overall healing that brought me to my spiritual center, brought me really to my heart, which is what it's all about.
Beautiful. Now, you've done almost every breathwork training there is out there. Can you share a little bit about that and how IBT came to be?
Yes. So I began in yoga with breathing as part of my personally developed yoga practice because there were not so many yoga teachers when I first became interested. So I had a book, and one of the parts in the book that was so interesting to me was that of pranayama. And I loved it. I really loved pranayama. But then now I look back and I can see why I loved it because I could control everything I was doing. The breath was controlled and had a particular way it was supposed to be formed. And so that's what my life was at that point. I was very much into control and keeping everything stable in my life. And there's a reason why I was that way as well. But that also made me sort of tight and stiff and, not so flexible or spontaneous. So as I proceeded through life, and my children were getting older, and I had more and more time to spend on what it is that I wanted to do. And I always had this idea there was something more I was supposed to do. And I remember thinking, I'm like old now. I'm 40. That how is there time for anything more? And so I just decided I just would keep looking for a cure for my migraine headaches. And that's really what started me on the journey. I was always a spiritual seeker, always. I I feel like I came into the world knowing how to pray. Even my mother would always love churches, and we would go to all these churches. I go right to the front and go to my knees, and my sisters would go like, "What is she doing?" And my mother would really back me up. She said, "Leave her alone." So I learned to start trusting myself in those early days when it came to when something would pull me towards it. And the breath pulled me, things Eastern pulled me, but it was my own experience. So when I first started with breath work, first of all, was pranayama, and then I started doing Reichian work, which was very important to me because it managed to pull me out of this solid state of being that I lived in. Now, I had chronic migraine headaches, and I was looking for a cure for that. So had twofold purpose. One was to heal my headaches, and one was to deepen my spirituality. So I started with the Reichian work, which is like bioenergetics for those who might not understand the Reichian concept. And it was all about moving the energy in the body. So energetically, I don't think I understood that at the time. But with experience with Reichian work and then going into rebirthing, it just so happened it fell in my lap. So I loved it. It really started the two processes together really started to open me up. However, it didn't go deep enough. I had so many questions. I had a very strong inquiring mind. And, I know that probably there were a few teachers along the way that says I'm going right here, and that's not where the answer is. But some of my questions were good. So I started searching more. It didn't take long with the Reichian work and the rebirthing work to cure my headaches. They just really just vanished over a year after having them for most of my life. Then I started going into more breathwork trainings because I didn't get the answers to my questions, and my questions were important. So I took every form of breath work I could come in contact with. I did holotropic work of Stan Groff. I did Gay and Kathleen Hendricks transformational breath work, and several other sort of less known modalities at the time. And so bit by bit by bit, these pieces started to come together for me. And I think what made us unique, I had no idea I was going to create a training, not a clue. I just wanted my own healing, and I had a private practice, and my private practice just grew. I almost felt like there was a light blinking on top of the building, and that if you've been sexually abused, come here. If you have trauma, come here. And they came in droves. And so at some point when we were moving out of the area, I thought I have to do something more. So as I moved, I started coming back and doing programs. At that point, I started doing some hypnotherapy training. And I love that too, except for one problem with that is as a hypnotherapist, you guide the process. And I learned a lot in my experiences in hypnotherapy and with the organization I was involved with, a lot of tools and techniques. Some of them I integrated in. Soon I didn't do hypnosis anymore because breath work is better. It creates an altered state similar to hypnosis, but without the need for a guide, just a supporter. See, because I took something from all the different modalities, and the inner healer is something that I really connected to. I always knew there was a part in me that knew exactly what needed to happen to come back into balance. And so when I met Groff's work, I thought, well, that's it. So with breath work, if you really let go and allow the process to take its own movement, if you let it pace itself, if you step into the flow of it all, it will activate the inner healer, and then that's when the magic happens. I don't know if you want more than that, but
Yes, it's accessing our energy system through breath. I don't know.
it's we are energetic beings.
Mhm, mhm.
And so when we breathe, we supply our body with oxygen, but we also move the energy in the body. So I learned about different breathing techniques that could be used to move the energy a little bit stronger. And it doesn't take long to learn. A person can do this kind of breathing on their own. So when we work with a facilitator and we train professionals. Our focus is on professionals because, as professionals, they had legitimacy. Pardon all the clocks ringing, but
That's okay.
um, the if you put this tool in the hand of someone who understands more than just someone who was looking for a career change, and the emotional process is very addictive. So lots of people love to go to energetic breathwork programs and then they get kind of high. Well, if you're going to get high, that's not a bad way to do it. But it has so many applications.
Mhm.
Um, we are body, emotions, mind, and spirit, and we include all four levels. And so many of the psychological techniques today want to bypass. I mean, it's like, okay, we're going to do this quick technique. We're going to tap this away. We're going to do this. And then everything just disappears. But healing has to happen on all four levels in order to be effective. That means the body has to have its day. And for me, that was where it was all at. The body is a living autobiography. it remembers everything that's ever happened. Even though this might not remember, the body does. So we have to clear the energy in the body. And then emotions are energy in motion. So by using the breath and we drop into the body, the emotions will begin to surface. The key, of course, is to be able to let go and allow the process to be natural and organic. See, because our work is a composite modality, it has elements of many different methods. We do parts work, but in a very simplified form. I call myself the breathalyzer. If I can bring the breath to it, then I can use it. If it needs more than that, let somebody else do it. And I just have found that if you're going to pick one thing to do, I mean, of course, you will, excuse my enthusiasm. If you're going to pick one thing to do, breathe, because the breath it connects. It's the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious mind. And when we use the breath and we really relax into it, it's like doors open. And I've never had spiritual experiences like I did until I started breathing. Amazing, fabulous experiences. Deities and light and sound and awareness and spontaneous releases. And it never gets old. There's always something new. We're always growing as we go through phases in life. So as I get older, I'm still using it, and it's still making a difference for me. And it will, if we would teach more elderly people, I don't claim being elderly as yet, but if we would teach older people how to really work with the breath, there'll be no COPD. There won't be the same kind of lung issues that come from the lungs atrophying from lack of use. So we build that in a preparation before we breathe. So as the breath moves in the body, releasing the body, letting go of emotions, and creating balance, then we also can change our mind. You see, because all those decisions we made when we were children, we didn't have the whole picture then. And we just made up stories. Some of them are accurate, and some of them we shoved away and hid, like I did. I had no idea that my migraines were caused by emotional repression, by pushing down. And the more I was doing work out there in the world and was seen, the worse the headaches got, because it's not safe to be seen. And it's people just don't realize how amazing they are and how beautiful they are and how exciting life can be if we let go of the old stories, the belief systems. So I developed a biocomputer kind of program because that's what we are. We've just been programmed. And so we have a big focus on deprogramming the old computer, updating the computer files, if you might say. And the spiritual aspect doesn't need any specific help from us, because we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And if we just, as we clear out all the dross in our worlds and our being, spirituality, our heart opens and relationships become broader, and love is who we are. And, so I love the work and I never get tired of it. And watching people open is just the greatest gift.
There's a book called The Body Keeps Score, and I mean, I've read it several times, and I use that theory when I am explaining breath work, and in
Yes.
particular your breath work, to
Yeah.
clients that I'm working with. And because what the breath does is it helps to release that trauma that's being held in our body.
Exactly. And, I bought that book when it first came out, and I really, Bessel van der Kolk, I really do admire his work, along with the work of Bruce Lipton, who has done a couple of things, videos of how we're programmed as children. So one of the focuses of our work is to go into those early childhood programs and to understand that When a child is up to the age of 6 or 7, they are functioning in a theta brainwave state. That theta brainwave state is the state of hypnosis. So they're being hypnotized. But Bruce Lipton talks about it in the way that's the way it's designed. That we are just gathering up all kinds of. We don't stop to think if we like it or if it's right or wrong. It just is. So the child is programmed, and if you don't have the best childhood, or if you had difficulties along the way, and in today's crazy world, it's very different than 50 years ago when kids played outside all the time. But now there's so much input, and all of that input might interact with that child programming, and then the story grows, and then we become less of who we are. It takes a lot of courage to do this kind of work,
Yeah.
because I remember being really afraid in the beginning. And then I realized there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And it changed my life. And I see it again and again, that just to put it aside, just let it go, just go into the flow. And if you have bigger stuff, you need maybe a supporter, a facilitator. And that's what we do, is train facilitators. And I've done hundreds of workshops for the public, and just to see how people's lives are changed in a weekend was just fabulous. And so there would be standing room only to be on the mailing list and all that kind of thing. I do less of that now because I'm busy training, and I'm also busy training teachers so that I can write my book.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, you got to get around to having time for that. But the work is just, um, without a doubt, the most powerful modality, and it's like you can't do it wrong. That's what's good from if you have, and the breather will not go where it's not safe to go unless there's somebody sitting with them. So it's really, really safe, unless you go to some of these big festivals where there's evocative music and there's fast breathing, and trauma and shock can be contagious. And very often, somebody goes into shock, and a lot of the facilitators are not well trained enough to know what to do about that. So we don't even teach how to work with groups until we get to our advanced training, so that people really can be responsible when it comes to that. So we're really dedicated to making that happen for the next generation.
One of the things about IBT is that it's almost a fast track to the body and to heal trauma or any sort of abuse that someone may have had during their life. And I think that's makes it incredibly, incredibly powerful. And also, I have done it, and I am also training to be a facilitator. And for myself, the spiritual aspect of it is just, I can't even explain it. There is just such a deep connection to spirit on so many other levels. And I mean, I remember having a session where I felt like every cell in my body was pulsating. They had a rhythm and a beat to it. And so, in your experience, and when you've had clients come or as a group, what would you say? What is one of the biggest transformations that you've seen in your work?
Well, I've seen people eliminate. Well, let me give you a really great example. There was a man who came in my early days of practicing, and he had been in a car accident, and he walked with a limp, and during the session, I think it was the second session, his leg curled up in a way that I was looking, and I thought, can I even do that with my leg? Because he almost lost his leg, and it was shattered. The bones were all shattered, and I could see it was painful. And I acknowledged that, and I sort of gave him permission to take it slower, and he was totally in it. And the next time he came back, I asked him, like, how was it? And he said, well, I went to the doctor because I was wondering what was going on with this pain in my leg. And he said, well, my one leg is shorter than the other. And the doctor said, lay down. And he measured his legs. And he said, looked down at his shoe. And he said, you have a lift in your shoe. He said, that's because my legs are not even. He said, take the lift out of your shoe and your back pain will go away. So he did. His leg lengthened on its own during the session. So I've seen people who, asthmatics, who they would be in a session and all of a sudden they feel like their asthma is coming on. They run for their inhaler. Well, we'd never forbid someone to use their inhaler, but we would stand with them and just wait a little longer and wait a little longer until you really need it, because it's a habit. And as the body is releasing, sometimes it goes through these contracted experiences. And if we just give it a little bit more time, then, I've seen so many people eliminate their inhalers. People go off their sleep app machines. There was a woman who lived on her sleep app machine for years at night. And when she came for trainings, she would get this report from the clinic, because it was one of those things that she could get a feedback. When she was at the training, her sleep app machine never kicked in. So why? It's because she was breathing in a new way and her stress level was dropping and she was coming into balance. So we really are focused on bringing in balance, healing the splits, coming into balance, because we have splits everywhere. We have splits in our body, like the leg that healed itself. And I've seen heart patients. There's a study that proved that chest breathers, we work with distortions in breathing because that's how the body holds, that heart attack patients are all chest breathers. All chest breathers. If we lower that center of the breath, the chest, because the heart's a muscle, that tension in the heart muscle begins to lessen until it's healed. So the body is always telling its story, the way it moves, the way it interacts in the world, and it is just so. It's like what's amazing is that it doesn't matter where the problem is. Doesn't matter where the problem is. It will find its way to healing if you use the breath in the way that we teach it.
Mm-hmm.
We might have been better off in my office. Anyway, it'll stop here in a minute. So, to be able to um, adjust ourselves and our breath, that we will find that we begin to live as a whole being, because we're not just body and we're not just emotions, but our emotions will reflect often what's held inside. And we're not just our mind. People relate to who they are in their mind. If we can get it dropped down, we'll begin to relate to who they are here. And it makes all the difference in the world. So when all the levels are in balance, like you're talking about your experience, because of the work you've done on yourself, because not everybody's going to have these miraculous experiences right off the bat, although sometimes spirit is really tricky. It comes in and gives you something really strong, because I felt that happened to me, that I had this incredible spiritual experience the first time I did breathwork. The first time, and then it was like God dangling a carrot and saying, just follow me. And so I did. And that's how, and it will be different for everyone. There's no right or wrong way to do it. If we trust the inner healer, it will take us there. And if we just let go and go with the flow, do you know how busy we are trying to control things?
Yeah.
Like finding the right space to put behind us when we do interviews. With lots of noise. Sorry, everyone, for that. This is
Oh,
what they
that's
call real life. It's real life. There's always interruptions. So can we
okay.
let go and just keep going?
Yeah. And one of the things that I think people might say, well, I breathe every day. I'm alive. Like what do I need to work on? What is it that makes breathing your way better than just breathing how I'm breathing?
Great question. So, when we breathe normally, we have distortions, which is all part of the way we protect ourselves. We learn as a child to, and as we grow up, to put in place certain protective mechanisms so that we feel safe in the world. And so that we don't really trust life. So, this is one of the things I got back as I managed to trust life. So, how does that work? And the breath will do the job as long as we eliminate the pauses as a practice. So we teach the basic circular breath, and lots of breath work groups do this, and we just add to it over time. So if we connect the inhale and the exhale, there's no holding. So take, for example, if you see a child who's crying and the parent says, "Stop that crying," how do they stop? They hold their breath, swallow it down so they can stop. And so that makes all the difference in the world. If you have someone who didn't allow you to have natural expression, you learn to hold back on that level. So by doing the circular breath, that also is how we create the altered state of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's recent research that shows that working with the circular breath also activates the theta brainwave state. So when you're in that theta state, if you have an experienced facilitator, they can help you reprogram the computer. It's not so easy to do it by yourself. A workshop or some private sessions make all the difference in the world because they can do a little directing. It's like the client themselves, they're the person that we follow. We go on the journey with the client. We don't take them on the journey. We go on the journey. But that doesn't mean we don't use our tools. We have many tools that make all the difference in the world. Inner child work. We work with intention, give focus to the breath. And we teach in our first level 2 breaths. And then we have more that we teach when we get into the advanced trainings. But it's the circular breath puts you into the altered state. Then we do a fast and full breath, which ups the ante. It sort of like builds the energy in the body so it can flush the system. We're energetic beings. We want to that's what happened to you when you felt the energy.
Yeah.
Everything was open and flowing, and we need to spend more time open and flowing like you're talking about and like I've experienced many times. And then sometimes you just breathe, and spirit just comes in and takes over. The inner healer just takes over, and that's the best. But might take a little bit of practice with the circular breath to understand that. And we have a video on our website that teaches the basic circular breath, so anybody can sign on to the website and give it a try and see what it's like, and understand that the circular breath fuels the body. And how often do we hold our breath? Most people don't breathe. They don't breathe fully, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Can I give them a little exercise?
Sure. Yeah, please
Okay.
do.
So I want everybody watching out there to take a nice deep breath in. Just go, okay, and hold it. And now take in a little more air. You'll think you had a full breath, but you realize you didn't. So then you exhale and hold it and squeeze out the excess. And you repeat that a few times before you do the circular breath, and that will begin to expand the capacity of our lungs. And as you know, my blood oxygen is always 98, 99%. And it didn't used to be. It used to be barely 90 because I held my breath all the time. Sometimes I would get kind of woozy and dizzy. People aren't grounded. If you have enough trauma, you won't be grounded. So when you work with the breath, it helps you connect to the ground. We're spiritual being having a physical experience. We're electromagnetic beings, and the earth is electromagnetic. So we need to stick to each other. Mother Earth and who we are really important in our connection to why we're here. And we can't grow if we're not grounded. We can't expand if we're disconnecting from our body. A lot of people use breath work to leave. They disconnect, or they use meditation to disconnect. And if you want the best meditation, breathe. All the meditation systems have a breathing meditation because it helps you stay in your body. A lot of people start go floating off, and that's not going to help anything.
No.
No. So
So
just by trying that, it really will make a difference.
that's great. Thank you for sharing that. There is one more piece that I'd like to speak about when it comes to
Okay.
breath that really sets you apart from the other breathing techniques is that when you've got a client and they've gone through a session with you and they've had a breakthrough, let's say, or a spiritual awakening, there is another piece at the end, and it's an integration piece. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, we really focus on the corrective experience. So if you have opened up and you have an awareness or you've had a memory, or sometimes the body remembers, but there's no conscious memory, and which is okay as long as if it's important to remember details, they will come. And if they don't come, that means they're not that important. So the corrective experience is so important. And we really work on reinforcing that with our students. So if it's inner child work, then we do that kind of work. There's many different ways where we can resource the body if that's where the release is taking place. Little massage techniques, easy things like that. If it's emotional, just to provide um, emotional support, whatever that is. If it's in the mind, then we work with affirmations, and we do that in lovely ways, like to whisper the affirmation with a little music in the background. Just being with them in silence might be a corrective experience, or role playing with them might be a corrective experience. I mean, I've used flowers from my office and all of a sudden put a bouquet in their hands and walk them through a little guided imagery as a corrective experience, because when they're wide open at the end, that's where the most important change take place. People think that you're going to start chatting and that's a corrective experience. It's not. The corrective experience goes beyond the words because you have to go to your conscious mind. So we're very careful with our facilitators to make sure they don't get chatty, because then if you ask the person a question, they have to go to their mind to answer it. And
Mhm.
we don't want the mind to be involved. Afterwards, all of that begins to come back into balance. But in our Western culture, the mind is really busy wanting to take over. So we want to watch that that's not where the focus is, that the focus is somewhere else. And that is unique to each person and unique to what they're working on. You
Mhm.
know, we're always growing. We're either growing or decaying. So this is why the work with the breath is a lifetime tool. It's the best stress management activity you can do. Are you stressed? Just start connecting the breath. We have a video called The Ideal Breath, which 10 minutes, there was a research done by two doctors that they said that the ideal breath, that 6 breaths a minute for 10 minutes twice a day, reduces anxiety and depression up to 82%.
Mhm.
So I created a video with that 6 breaths a minute. It's called The Ideal Breath. It's on YouTube. It's on my website. And, so if a person has anxiety, you can start doing some of your own work around releasing that. And then if your work wants to go deeper, or if you want to go deeper, then you need a facilitator. And we have a resource facilitator list on our website, which is growing. So that can help people who are looking for someone to work with, depending on where they are. And we have a teacher in Spain. We have one in Canada on the East Coast, and more coming. And there are some around the U.S. as well. And
Mhm.
we're growing.
Well, they do say if you want to change your physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual state, change your breath.
Exactly. And um, we had a woman who she was doing an advanced class, and she'd always been heavy all her life. And she decided she wanted to, we were taking a trip to Puerto Rico. She wanted to wear a bikini at the beach. And it took her, the course went on for a year. And she lost like 45 pounds and wore a bikini to uh, Puerto Rico. And all she did was have the intention, holding the image of herself, because the mind is, we can use it. Sometimes we use it the wrong way and it gives us scary pictures, and, replace that. Come back to your breath. And if the mind starts thinking, you can use an affirmation to keep your focus centered and peaceful, and it
Mhm.
will it will change your life. Change your breath, change your life, change your mind, change your life. It all works together. Breathe and your body will change, like her body changed. And to this day, this has been about 25 years, and she never gained her weight back because she changed something on the inside that allowed her to be at a natural weight for her. And this is how it goes. It's just amazing. And it's so simple. Anybody can do it at any age. It works amazingly with children. If you got a child who's kind of anxious, teach them the circular breath. Their pace will be faster because everything's faster as a child as we get older. So you just have them connect the inhale and the exhale, and so, moms out there, dads out there, if you've got a child who's anxious, just have them breathe, and breathe with them.
Do it together.
Right.
So, do you have any trainings or any workshops coming up that you might want to share with our audience?
Yeah. So, if unfortunately we have several. Well, unfortunately for new people, we have a couple of Part Bs coming up because we have our foundation level, and then we have our certification track, which it means that you go deeper into it and do case studies, etc. I have a level 1 training that's going to be in Phoenix in August 9th. It's split weekend format. So what's good about that, of course, Phoenix in August can be hot. So you can go in between. You can go to Sedona and cool off if you want to come to this part of the country. We have more that's coming up, August 9th through the 11th and 16th through the 18th. It's non-residential, which means you can do Airbnb, and it's less expensive than doing a residential program. Our Part Bs are all residential. Then I'm doing an experiential introduction, 5 hours. It's going to be more than just a regular introduction, or I'm going to teach the breath, and we're going to practice, and we'll do some breathing together. And that's going to be on June 1st. If somebody is interested in that, the flyer is just being finished up, so it'll go out to our system. And you can go to integrationconcepts.net and sign up for our mailing list, and then you'll get a copy of that flyer. It's online. People want everything online, but I've decided, okay, I'll give a little bit more. This online it's $25. So, and you'll get handouts as well. So you get some information. And so people who are interested and not quite sure they're ready for a training, it would be a good way to get a taste of the method. So it'll be 5 hours on June 1st.
Beautiful.
Online. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that with us and sharing your knowledge with us today. I'm super grateful that you took the time to come here and speak to me. So thank you,
Thank
Carol.
you. Well, and I just want to say one last thought. It just popped into my head, and it feels important. If you don't know what to do, take a breath. If you still don't know what to do, take another breath and another until you know what to do. So that's how it works. If you just keep breathing, you're going to know what to do next.
And each breath connects you to spirit a little bit
Abs
more, a
breath.
little bit more.
The word breath and the word spirit are one and the same in many languages.
Yeah.
And it's true. God breathed life into mud and made man. So every time we take a breath, we're interacting with spirit. And isn't that a beautiful thought?
Mm, it sure is.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Carol. I hope to have you back on the show again soon.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for putting up with all the little extraneous noises around here this morning. So
All
blessings to you all.
right.
Thank you, Ronnie.
You're
You're
welcome.
the best.